Wow, that'll wake you up. Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is David Johnson, and I am your worship associate this morning. Located on the ancestral lands of the Adena, Hopewell, Miamia, and Shawnee people, our urban community welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, and works for justice, equity, and inclusion. We're glad you're here with us this morning. At the end of the service, there will be announcements of upcoming events. If you'd like to learn more about these events in our community or our programs, please contact us at member-care at firstuu.com. We begin our service, as we do every Sunday, by lighting our chalice, the chosen symbol of our faith, with these words by Josh, Prudence, and Percival Roburn, written in honor of their mom's ordination. Shared light, shared future, we are all flames. When we gather hand in hand, our church, our community, our home, we inspire, we celebrate, we come together sharing our light of hope for our shared future. Please join now in singing our First Church Vision song. The words will appear on your screen.
You have to turn on your mic. Let's try that again. December 17th, 2016. I sat on an operating table, shaking uncontrollably. You have to calm down, said the doctor. I don't think I can, I said. Try, he replied. And so, I took all of my concentration, tensed up every muscle in my body, and they stuck a needle in my spine. 1 hour later, Jera Ray Plummer was born via C-section. In the weeks that followed, I found it really difficult to stand up. And I couldn't walk more than a few feet before I was in a lot of pain. While Sierra's birthday isn't for a few more months, I was reminded of this particular instance when I was talking to Reverend Connie earlier this week. We were talking about the state of the church, and I said, it's a lot like having surgery. For starters, you don't have surgery because it's fun. You do it because something's not working right, or there's been a trauma. For me, on that operating table in 2016, it was my body that wasn't working right. It was starting to shut down. And in case I didn't deliver soon, there were going to be really dire consequences for Ciara and me. Thinking about the trauma this congregation has gone through in the past few years, you might think about the pandemic, something that happened before March 2020, or everything that's happened since then. Truth of the matter is, this congregation is holding a lot of trauma. The good news is there is a road to recovery. It just starts with surgery. And it's scary though, right? I mean, logically, sitting on that operating table, I knew everything was going to be okay. Ciara had cooked in me much longer than Lily had, and I was much healthier going into this C-section than I had been the one prior. But even though I knew that logically, my body did not know that. Logically, we know the steps we can take to keep everyone in this community safe. Logically, we know that we are better. We feel better, mind, body, and soul when we gather together. But we're still scared. And why wouldn't we be? The road ahead is painful. It's painful, and we have to relearn skills, and maybe we're going to have to let go of a few things too. Just like it was painful to walk those first weeks after my C-section, maybe you find it painful to gather again, or even think about gathering again. Just like I had to relearn how to stand up, we have to relearn how to socialize, how to be in covenant, how to be a church again. Just like I had to let go of who I thought Ciara was going to be, we are going to have to let go of the processes, the expectations, and the dreams we had for this congregation before the pandemic. But that's okay, because we will learn new skills, and we will get to a place where things are okay. No, we won't be the same congregation that we were before March 2020. Just like I'm not the same person I was before Ciara was born. But that's okay, because we will have learned new skills. Already, we have learned how to hold in-person services and live stream at the same time. Just like I learned how to push 2 wheelchairs at once. We're just not here yet. We're still in surgery. And it's scary. And that's okay. I know it will be okay. Because just as I trusted my surgeon and his expertise in 2016, I trust the expertise in this congregation. We are on the road to recovery, and we will be okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Dickerson and speaking to you today on behalf of the First Church Board. In September, our congregation passed new bylaws, and this was after a long process of development and consultation. Now we have a simpler governance foundation that sets fundamental ground rules for church governance and allows for more flexibility in setting up groups to effectively manage church operations and accomplish our ministry goals without having to go through a lengthy process of amending bylaws. The new bylaws establish a standing committee structure with 5 committees. There's a nominating committee, a committee on shared ministry, human resource committee, ministerial search committee, and a finance committee. So compare this to our structure under the previous bylaws. There were 20 named committees. Some of these no longer existed because the original purpose had gone away. In the case of others, there's still a need for continued operation, but there may be a need to review and amend procedures. And in some cases, there may be a need to reconfigure or combine functions. Some of these groups will continue as teams and operate under their own policy manuals. There will also be task forces with specific goals and a fixed end date for their work. So you can see there's a lot more work to be done. Next steps include not only looking more closely at some of our operations and procedures, but also focusing on strengthening covenant and how we want to be with each other. We will also be exploring this in the context of a post-COVID world where so much of our interaction has become virtual and less in person. So as we embark on these next steps, we need input from the congregation. How can you contribute? The monthly board meetings are open to members of the congregation, so are team and task force meetings. The only exceptions are when the content is confidential, legal, or personal items are being discussed. Give us your suggestions for community building group outings or special programs. And when the board puts out a call for policy task force volunteers, consider joining. It might be fun. It's sure to be interesting. The board also now hosts Zoom coffee hour on each first Sunday of the month. Bring your questions and comments. And if you don't feel comfortable in that setting, you can call or email us. We hope to hear more from you. Thanks for listening.
Before me are rocks and water. If you're new to First Church, let me give a bit of explanation. Every year before the pandemic, we would come together, mix waters that we had gathered from that summer, and pledge ourselves to the church again. And every Sunday, a bit of that water gets put in our bowl here. A reminder of the community that surrounds us. And these stones, they represent the good and the bad and everything in between that's happened to those in this community and in the wider world. And so today, I put a stone in for the joys known in this community. I put a stone in for the sorrows known in this community. And I put a stone in for those joys and sorrows unknown to this community. And finally, a stone for the joys and sorrows in the wider world. Our meditation today is called Bones or No Bones. This year, I learned a new word, doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is an act of spending an excessive amount of screen time devoted to the absorption of negative news. The word doom connotates darkness or evil, and scroll suggests a habit of not staying on one site or post or image for too long. The term gained popularity during the COVID-19 pandemic, the George Floyd protests, the 2020 US presidential election, and the 2021 storming of the United States Capitol, as these events have been noted to have exacerbated the practice of doom scrolling. If you have been on a social media platform in the past year, perhaps you have found yourself doom scrolling. I know I have. The Facebook algorithm in particular seems to be set up to promote doom scrolling. And it would be easy to think that that's just how all social media is. But then, on TikTok, there's a 13-year-old pug named Noodles. And here's the thing about Noodles, if you don't know anything about him. Some days he has bones, and some days he has no bones. Each day, Noodles' owner, Jonathan, picks him up from his little doggy bed and tries to stand him up. If he stands up, it's a bones day, which means it's a day to get things done, to take risks, to take charge. But if Noodles flops down, as he so often does, it's a no-bones day, which means it's a day to let things go. A day to give yourself a pass. A day to be generously kind to yourself. Jonathan has only been providing TikTok with the bones, no bones report for a few months now. But already there are songs and news articles and other love letters, enough to fill an entire encyclopedia dedicated to Noodles. Before service started today, I tried to look on TikTok to see what kind of day it was going to be. But the bones report had not been released yet. But in the future, may we all learn to put down our doom scrolling and remember life is about striking a balance between getting things done and letting things go. Our flowers today are from Patty and Scott Kelly, in loving memory of Merle and Ann Skidmore, Patty's parents, who both passed away in the fall. Please join me for a moment of silence.
Each month, we designate one of our Sunday plate collections to benefit a special cause or local social service organization. This month, our beneficiary is the Avondale Shiloh Food Pantry. The pantry is a major social justice focus area for First Church. Our volunteers and financial support are essential to the pantry's operation. While the pantry is in Avondale, it welcomes and serves anyone appearing at its doorstep. It is one of the largest pantries in Hamilton County and an important food source for many impoverished families. The need is even greater now, given the disproportionate impact of the pandemic that the pandemic inflicts on these families. Contributions from the First Church provide a large part of the pantry's annual budget. The funds raised today will support holiday efforts at the pantry. Clients will receive a turkey and all the fixings for a complete Thanksgiving meal. If you would like to support this important work, you can give by text at 513-717-7373. Or if you are a Breeze member, you may click Give Now, or online at www.firstuu.com, or you may mail your check to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. Please make your checks payable to First Unitarian Church and put a Shiloh food pantry in the memo line. Thank you for your generosity. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
was recently talking with a friend about how difficult we thought 2020 was. Somehow we thought that all the struggles of 2020 were just going to magically disappear when the calendar turned to the new year. And boy, were we ever wrong. My friend said that it was as if 2021 said, 2020, is that the best you've got? Here, hold my beer. Before it proceeded to create even more disruption and havoc in our lives. I've said it before and I'll say it again. These have been hard times for so many of us. We've lost people we love, we've lost jobs, some have lost homes, and we've had our routines turned upside down. Nothing is the same as it was. And all we want to do is get back to normal. For our community here at First Church, the pandemic struck at a time when we were already going through some tough stuff. Someone threatened our physical safety, and we had a membership issue that affected our communal safety and sense of well-being. We've been in a crisis. A disruption and breakdown in our normal or usual patterns of functioning that we haven't been able to resolve by our normal problem-solving resources and skills. That's a crisis, and we've been in one. Our community functioning has been disrupted by all the things that have happened to us, especially the pandemic over these last couple of years. According to Assistant Pastor Justin Poitras, when disaster strikes, people or communities or nations often move through 3 stages: crisis triage, reckoning or regrouping, and then finally redirecting. Crisis triage, he says, looks like keeping the ship afloat and surviving till tomorrow. That's where we were on March 12, 2020. Shell-shocked faces trying to cope in the immediate. Once people catch their breath, he continues, the fight or flight adrenaline subsides, the mind can turn toward reckoning with the crisis and its aftermath. On the basis of this reckoning, each person or group or community redirects and charts the best course forward. We're in his reckoning stage, trying to figure out how to come back and reestablish ourselves so we can plot the best course forward. I attended a workshop earlier this year with several of you that featured presenters from the Royal Society for Arts, Manufactures, and Commerce. They've launched a Bridges to the Future program, which is designed to, quote, bring people together to unlock ideas and innovation in the areas of society that must thrive so we can live well, to understand how the world could and should change after this pandemic. As part of this project, the team has developed a future change framework. I don't have permission to share the image with you, so please use your imagination to envision a square divided into 4 quadrants. And we'll start at the bottom left corner. These are the obsolete activities. These are the things that we were doing before the crisis that can now stop. We don't have to do them anymore because they are no longer needed. They don't make sense anymore. These are things we want to let go of. Next to them, in the bottom right corner, are the things we want to restart. These are the paused activities. We had to stop these things during the crisis, but they need to be restarted in some form. So, for example, I might put the order of service for each week in this category. We'd like to restart that again. The top left quadrant represents temporary measures. These are the things that we did to respond to the immediate needs of the crisis. We started doing them just because of the crisis, and we will end them when the crisis is over. So an example of a temporary measure was Governor DeWine requiring folks to stay indoors unless they were essential personnel. Or for us at First Church, maybe it's that we used to have the building disinfected after every time someone entered. Also in this category might be closing the sanctuary for worship. These were temporary measures that we can end. Not all at once, perhaps, but we're getting there. The final quadrant is the upper right corner. These are the innovative measures. This is where the beauty is. These are the things we want to amplify. These are the new things that we've been able to try, mostly because of the pandemic, that show some signs of promise for the future. For example, our new audiovisual system. We'd been talking about it for a while, but the plan for what we were doing actually changed in the weeks after the church closed. This new system allows us to be more accessible to those who can't or don't want to come to our facility. This is a matter of equity that we want to continue after the crisis. So what other examples can you think of? What temporary measures did we start because of the crisis that we want to end when it's over? What things were we doing before COVID that don't serve us anymore? Things that we can just totally let go of. What things did we have to stop or pause because of the crisis that we need to or want to restart? And what new things have we been able to try that show signs of promise such that we want to amplify them? For some folks, your frame of reference in thinking about these questions might be getting back to normal, getting back to the way things were before. And that's not a bad thing. Writing in April 2021, Pastor Poitras said, "The term new normal, though not lacking for airtime, is hardly useful here. 6 months from now," he says, "we will all be facing a new normal, both in our personal life and collectively as a society. And there will be another new normal 6 months after that. Reckoning and redirecting must happen continually, or one faces extinction. To use the business maxim, adapt or die." It seems pretty stark, I know. But there's some truth in that reckoning and redirecting must happen continually or one faces extinction. We should always be looking at the things that we're doing and deciding, do they work? Are they helpful? What could change? So what do we do here? What does that reckoning look like for us? We're in uncharted territory. Not since the 1300s have we really seen a pandemic like this one. This is worse than 1918 in the influenza epidemic. Membership is dropping and attendance is down in many faith communities, here and in other UU churches and congregations of denominations all over the country, not just Unitarian Universalists. These numbers were already going down before COVID. An article in Christianity Today entitled "Why Church Can't Be the Same After the Pandemic" notes that across the country, pastors have ushered weary congregations through virtual worship setups, lonely hospital stays, funerals, job losses, intense political tensions, and relentless debates over pandemic precautions. Churchgoers making their way back through the sanctuary doors in 2021 will carry the weight of trauma and divides built up over more than a year spent apart, if they decide to return to the building at all. During the first few months of 2021, according to the Pew Research Center, fewer than half of regular churchgoers in the U.S. made it to an in-person service, though more than 3/4 of them said that their churches had reopened. Leadership consultant Carrie Newhoff says that the average church has seen their reopened attendance come in at 36% of previous levels. Almost no leader I've interviewed, he says, expects church attendance to jump back to pre-COVID levels for a while. From my own UU colleagues, I hear their attendance is down across the board as well, mostly because folks are waiting for a vaccine for children, and in some cases because the routines have changed, and what church was before no longer fits their needs. So I've been doing a lot of reading and research about the post-pandemic church. The book that resonated with me the most was one called The Post-Quarantine Church by Tom Rainer, a minister and church consultant. The board is reading it now. I'll tell you, a common thread in everything that I've been reading and in all the workshops and discussions I've attended is that we can't expect things to return to normal. Or as Scott McConnell says, churches have resumed, but what they really need is a restart. How do we restart? Here are some challenges and opportunities for the post-pandemic or post-crisis church, along with a few ideas on how to implement them. Number one, gather differently and better. This could mean opening the doors more often, using our facilities in a way that serves the community around us, partnering with other organizations. Right now, our building is open for maybe 2 hours a week. How could we use that more often? How do we get groups coming back in? Number two, seize the opportunity to reach the digital world. We have to understand that the majority of attenders may no longer be in the room. How can we take advantage of social media and create spaces to welcome online-only participants? I think another way of looking at this is that it doesn't have to be either in person or virtual services. It can be both and. We can do both and serve more people. A third suggestion or challenge here is to reconnect with the local community. I've wondered often, what is our community? We talk about being part of Avondale, but are we really? How many people from Avondale are part of our community? How do the people who live within a half-mile radius of First Church view us? And that's not just Avondale. That's Cuff. That's parts of Walnut Hills. How do they see us? Do they even know we're here? Would they miss us if we were gone? What are we doing to reconnect with the people who are right outside our doors? Another challenge, rethinking our facilities for emerging opportunities. How do we make our building more useful? When I first came here, we talked about being known as the music church because we have jazz and we have Linton and the May Festival rehearses in our church. We wanted to be known as the music church. What about that? Is that something that we should be looking at now? Do we want to increase our rentals? Is there a chance that we could become the wedding church? Should we think about that? What about things that we could do to make money and provide service for the community? At one time, we had childcare. We had a daycare at the church. Is it time to start thinking about things like that again? And if you haven't noticed already, a lot of these things focus on our mission. That's the fifth challenge I want to leave you with. Focus on our mission. Why are we here? Who do we serve? Whose church are we? Now, this doesn't mean ignoring our current members in search of just numbers for the sake of numbers. But this does mean working for justice, equity, and inclusion. It means welcoming people into our spiritual home so that they can find their own spiritual home and be on their journey with us, because we are all in this together. It's hard to imagine that anything good could possibly come from the hard times that we've endured these last couple of years. And still, there are blessings and opportunities for growth and transformation that emerge. Our new AV system and the additional access it's created. Our new bylaws, the Covenant Task Force work that's happening, creating an online auction, the work that Heart and Hand did last year to develop a new auction was amazing. We're reinvigorating our membership and community builders teams. We're reaching out to younger members and finding ways to stay connected with those who might feel isolated now. I ask you, what else is possible? What future do we want to create? Over the coming weeks, we're going to have opportunities to talk about these questions in person and over Zoom. I want to hear your thoughts and your hopes and your dreams and your ideas and your suggestions and your concerns and even your worries and your complaints. Look for these invitations. Look for invitations to these discussions in your email and in the newsletter over the coming weeks. We have much to talk about, much to think about. So in the meantime, I want to leave you with some images. Some of you may recognize these right away, but for those who don't, back in October of 2018, during my ministerial startup weekend, we assembled in groups and drew pictures of what we hoped First Church would be in 10 years. We are now in our 4th year together. Do these pictures still reflect the future you want? A future that's possible? If not, what's changed? What different thing would you like to see? And if they do still ring true, what work do we need to do now to make our dreams a reality?
sing again. This congregation is full of artists and expertise. Join me now, as you are willing and able, in saying our closing words, which will be on the screen. Are they not on the screen? There we are. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Though our service has officially ended, here are a few announcements you should be making. We invite you to share with us, Reverend Connie or me, your pictures from this season. Did you bake anything particularly fall-y? What about your kids? Do you have some pictures of them in their Halloween costumes? Or decorations of your house? Do you have a spooky story you could share? We'd love to showcase them. So please send them to me or Reverend Connie by Wednesday of this week. You should also note that the Avondale community is hosting a trunk or treat October 30th. That's next Saturday. I hope you will be able to join them.